Welcome to my channel, INTJ Island. Today, I'm going to talk about the INTJ's dominant cognitive function, introverted intuition. One of the reasons that I think INTJs enjoy reading so much is because it is a perfect fit with our intuition. Intuition, especially our introverted intuition, is not concerned with acting upon an idea as much as it is in making the idea connect to our worldview. We evaluate the idea internally, automatically, without trying. A new idea will tend to fall into a spectrum of possibilities. Our intuition sorts it accordingly. It might be so new to us that it appears alien to anything we have already organized and stored away. It might be slightly similar to something else we have processed, or it could be very similar to something else, or perhaps nearly identical with something we have already processed. The result of having a new concept falling into one of these categories will impact greatly upon the pace at which we respond to it. If we have encountered this idea before, we might react instantly, providing insights about it that appear almost magical to an outside observer because of the depth of clarity of our understanding of the idea. If it is a truly new idea, we can move very slowly as we work through it in our minds. It might take minutes, hours, days, or even years to come to a full understanding of this concept. This can make others think we are slow or mysteriously unwilling to respond the way that they would. Depending upon the point on the spectrum of previous understanding where an idea with which we are presented falls, our reactions can be quite different. We can be quick and nimble, or slow and plodding as we hesitate to commit while we analyze. With truly new and especially with potentially profound and challenging ideas, which are usually our favorite type, we will shove the concept deep inside our minds and let our subconscious have a crack at it as we do other things. The INTJ personality type is perhaps the best at connecting up at a certain conscious level with our subconscious, giving it things to work on. Even in our sleep, we sometimes come to conclusions that are there when we wake up, often in the middle of the night, with an epiphany about what the concept really means. That is, of course, assuming we can get to sleep at all, with our minds running like a high-end sports car on a racetrack. Introverted intuition is how we normally perceive the world, and it makes us appear very odd to the extroverted sensors, who usually see something and react immediately. Either they understand it or they don't understand it, but they still react right away. And here is this INTJ who might react quickly, but if he does, he could have an immediate explanation of the concept in depth, leaving the others at a loss to understand how the INTJ did it. When this happens, we get responses like, "You know everything," or "How did you know that?" Alternatively, the INTJ might be silent and disconnected and not appear to react at all as he processes a new concept before giving an opinion. If pressed, he might say, "Interesting." If pressed further, he could put the others to sleep as he lists off possible effects from this new alleged cause. Like a defendant in court, we assume that the new idea is false, though possibly true. We require evidence so that we might prove which it is. And if the idea is valid, the ramifications must be considered. And we consider them. We must consider them. Whether quickly giving a profound answer or pausing to consider. Either way, the INTJ appears to be odd to the extroverted sensors. What good is it, this deep plotting process? Let's take an example. You throw a switch and a light bulb illuminates your room. An intuitive might give no indication that he has his intuition working, but he may know that the electrons are motivated by a potential difference which forces them to move through the wires, which are slightly heated by that motion, and into the bulb and on through the bulb. If it is an incandescent bulb, the element will quickly heat up to maybe 2500 degrees Celsius, and this will cause the element to emit energy in the form of visible light. He may well understand that the surface of the sun is around 6000 degrees, and that impacts on the frequency of the light it emits. Red giant stars are cooler, about 3500 degrees, while the hottest stars are blue giants at 40,000 degrees. He has watched an electric stove as a burner warms up and goes from being dark to a dim red and then up to a bright red that's approaching yellow at around 400 degrees C. If it warmed up to 6,000 degrees C, it would radiate like the sun's surface. If, when he throws a switch, power is applied to a fluorescent bulb, the gas inside the bulb will ionize and emit visible light. A light-emitting diode, or LED lamp, will create light via electrons moving through a semiconductor material and changing state as they drop into positively charged vacated spots called holes in the crystal lattice structure of the material. This will emit photons. You might also be able to mentally trace the source of the electricity back to a hydroelectric dam or other type of power station and understand that the electric power was raised to a very high voltage before being transmitted along the cables to decrease the amount of current required to move the power to the nearby transformer station, which converts the high voltage to the lower voltages used within the house. Power equals voltage times current. High voltage and low current can transmit just as much power as low voltage and high current. However, the problem with high current is that it will create heat in the cables, and that is radiated away and uses up the power wastefully. Much of this goes on at a deep level of the INTJ's mind. He might consider that the reason they use alternating current is to allow for easy conversion between voltage levels using transformers. Direct current would be shorted out by a transformer. People around the intuitive might not have a clue that he knows this or is thinking about these things, but they are surprised when he uses this information for other things if needed. He would know why an electric stove gets hot and a refrigerator using the same electric power gets cold, and so on. The electric patterns in the world around the intuitive may well all fit into the big picture that his mind demands. It is not that he requires the knowledge and the patterns in order to necessarily do anything with them, but it is absolutely necessary for his mind to be at peace, and things have to make some sort of sense to the intuitive or his mind will not rest until they do. For the INTJ, deciding what to do with his intuition is done by using his extroverted thinking, which acts like a barrel for the intuitive gun to fire through. I will discuss this judging cognitive function in my next video. But it is the way the INTJ uses his intuition to shape the outside world. Intuition is not built on logic and reason entirely. What makes it so powerful is the fact that it can range far outside the bounds of reason and logic and connect up things that it doesn't understand the why of just yet. It may notice that two things are coincident. They are always coincident. There is no apparent connection between them, but they always occur at the same time. Is it merely coincidence, or is there a cause and effect relationship that is not yet visible? Intuition makes the connection in a pattern without knowing the mechanism that creates the connection, and the intuitive journey begins. What if the first event were causing a third event that then plays back to create the second event? What if a string of events are somehow feeding back to the second event? This can churn away indefinitely as the INTJ works on the problem, and it can trigger a binge-feeding frenzy for knowledge in a related area to the problem at hand. The INTJ can be utterly obsessed with a topic and will read books, articles, or even do experiments himself if necessary to acquire the facts surrounding the problem that his intuition is working on. And in some cases, his intuition is working covertly, where the reason the INTJ has a desire to learn something might not be apparent to even himself. He just knows he must have this information. At other times, we do know what is going on with our intuition. We can tell that is what is driving us to learn things or to think about things. We have a closer connection to our intuition than many other intuitive types do. Having the extroverted thinking connected into the system helps us to feel at home with this entire process. It feels quite normal to the INTJ, even though it appears to be quite abnormal to most other personality types. And we can manipulate our introverted intuition to tackle problems that our extroverted thinking has found to solve. Our two powerhouse leading functions form a system that is strongly interrelated. It is easy for us to get our intuition engaged in organizing ideas that will assist us in a project that we are working on, whether it is engineering a new device, building a bridge, or solving a theoretical physics problem. Look how Beethoven used his to create an entirely new approach to music. We might have our intuition running on overdrive, working out the fictional world in our latest novel, and filling in the many unique and alien aspects of that setting. A sneaky conduit to our intuition is our inferior function, extroverted sensing. That part of our mind is pulling in data all the time. It sees what's going on, it detects conditions around us, and it happily pumps information into our intuition constantly. Our intuition obligingly processes all this input and files it away into the patterns that already exist, or it will create new patterns that will assist in making this information intelligible. The only time an intuitive would feel lost is when he has nothing to process in his subconscious. Our intuition is dynamic, and it is only truly happy when it is working on something. That is why an INTJ is constantly searching for ideas and data to process. His mind never rests because, like a shark who must swim in order to breathe, our minds must be working to survive. We don't just like to think and learn, we truly need to do this. It is common that we will shape our intuitive patterns into visual images that interlock together like pieces of a puzzle that, when connected, show us a picture, a truly big picture that makes sense of the things we perceive in the world around us. I find myself seeing pictures of what the world will be like in the future, not as this is how it must be, but this is how probably it will be if things continue on their current course. I often see the image of the shape of things and the way they interact, rather than the nuts and bolts inside the shapes. The big picture matters more to me than the tiny details. The details might vary greatly without smudging the sharp lines of the big picture. Intuition is almost magical in the way it can leap over obstacles that appear insurmountable to the linear thinker. If X appears strongly to be connected to Y, our intuition will accept that, even when Z appears to be in the way of any sort of connection. Our intuition will wrestle with how this is possible, and it will be fed by our persistent and insatiable desire to learn more about the topic. We may know with near certainty that something is true, even when all the world says it is not, because our intuition has made the connections that must be true, even though the mechanism is unknown. Unknown mechanisms are right up our alley. We will not rest until we identify them. I think intuition is a wonderful gift, and I can't imagine life without it. What do you think? How has your introverted intuition changed your life and helped you to solve problems and increase your understanding of the world? Please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'll see you next time.